All right. All right, good morning, everyone. Let's prepare to make ready to stand by. This is the regularly scheduled Tuesday, October 11th meeting of the Atlanta City Council's City Utilities Committee. I'm Howard Shook, chair of the committee. To my right, we have Antonio Lewis. To my immediate right is Andrea Boone. To my immediate left is Vice Chair Dustin Hillis, and Alex Swan is to his left. Four of us constitute a quorum, so we can and will get going. And with that, I will move adoption of the agenda. Second by Mr. Hillis. Let's ring it up.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
And you've all carefully reviewed the minutes of the prior meeting. I'll make a motion to adopt them. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we do not. All right, let's do the consent agenda. Could you please sound our first reads?
22-01779, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management or her designee to make adjustments to accounts held by the department for the duration of the Flexible Levels, Options, and Affordable Terms Initiative program in order to resolve outstanding balance disputes and for the purposes. 22-01780, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $8,480,677.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the listed water distribution system improvement projects and for other purposes. 22-01781, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 budget for the Series 2021 Water and Wastewater Commercial Paper Notes budget in the amount of $1,060,036.20 to transfer funds from the 2021 Water and Wastewater Commercial Paper Notes for appropriations and add funds to the Environmental Impact Bond, Greens Ferry Restoration Project, and land acquisition and for other purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Liliana Bakhtiari has joined us. So, committee members, you will recall that at our last sitting, we requested that the representatives of the firms who are under contract with DPW be here to answer questions that we might have for them regarding our continued interest in seeing what we can do to improve the situation with the city rights of way. And I see one of them, Ed Castro, is here. Do we have a Russell representative here? No. Okay. And
I believe the idea was that they would attend when we had the paper next up.
my recollection was we wanted them here to continue the discussion. Well,
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chair.
what's that?
Not to my knowledge. No one's here from.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Castro has come in, so let's bring him up and ask our questions of him so that we can get him back to work. So, Mr. Castro, why don't you just start off with letting us know what your current contractual obligations are with the city, and then give us some history and context because you've had various contracts with the city for quite some time.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. We did understand, based on the recording of your last meeting, that it would be a good idea to show up. We did see that we were not on the agenda, but thank you for letting us to come in and explain. So this is Jonathan Mary. He manages the contract for the right-of-ways. Ed Castro Landscape started on Operation Clean Sweep. That was an emergency contract that we initiated in October of 2020, and we finished in June of 2021. That totaled only $165,298. What that consisted of was sofas, mattresses, the worst of the worst in the city, feces, everything was just being thrown out into the streets. So that was a time and materials contract where we were loading things up in dumpsters and clearing very, very heavy debris. So that was the extent of that. We also have the green infrastructure contract with the city. It's a citywide contract. I'm a little nervous. I'll do the best I can. That's a citywide contract, and that includes funds from the Department of Public Works. It's $1 million per year. We have been directed to use those funds on right-of-way work, and we have about exhausted $1.1 million for that. So we're doing the right-of-way works. Jonathan Mary can tell you that, where we are with that. I mean, we're really only operating in District 12, and then we have, so that's it. We don't have any emergency funds for right-of-way work, and we do have a few streets in District 1, and so we have those in there. Can you tell us what those are?
You have an airport contract? No?
Oh, in terms of context, yes, sir. So we also were awarded through a competitive bid the aviation contract. We had a temporary contract with that was split up between Russell and Castro. We had zones 1 through 8, and they had zones 9 through 16. So that was split. And then after much delay in rebidding that contract, we did win that. There was some concern about one firm's ability to do that. That represents less than 10% of our work, so we have the capacity to do that. Where we've done, and I just left the airport this morning and working with them. So that is a separate contract. We do, I think those are the majority of the contracts that we have. The green infrastructure is in there. I just want to point out that all our right-of-way work is about 70% of that is done through a AABE contractor that is certified City of Atlanta SBE, AABE contractor, CMG. We disclose that on there. So we're managing them, our crews. We do supplemental stuff. We're training their guys. So all these people are local residents. In our airport, where I was there this morning for our rollout, all those are, every employee we have down there is AABE. And so we're working within that. We're doing training. We've trained the Parks and Recreation Operations Department some years ago. We're working with the airport staff right now. We're a big proponent for improving the services for our constituents, the citywide. I am a longtime City of Atlanta resident and take great pride in servicing that. So there's a lot of personal skin in there. So we're training the in-house crews at the airport to better facilitate. We're doing equipment inventories for them. We're tracking them. We have a good relationship with them. We're coaching up the employees. I've done that also with the Department of Public Works. I've ridden on the trucks with commissioners before, I think with JP Masticite. So I've fueled up their trucks. I've gone down there to improve their services. We're improving the scheduling. This was under Mr. Wiggins. Really okay. It was my offer. So we're fully committed to getting the work done. We've had I'll be brief, a lot of problems with workforce. So this has been a great opportunity for us to improve the lives and companies of some of Atlanta residents. So that's really how we're getting some of this done. We have our workforce, and we're doing a good job with that, but we're also kind of, collaborating with the existing contractors in there.
And I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. So, John. Yep.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. My name is Jonathan Mary. I'm a Customer Relations Manager for Ed Castro Landscape. As Mr. Castro stated, this project, before I came on it, was Operation Clean Sweep. And as he stated, we were given roads based on complaints, I believe. So if something came into the Department of Public Works as a complaint, we would be deployed to clean up that area. At the end of that purchase order, there were funds left on, and we were given, I believe, 7 roads. That grew to about 14, and we currently service 37 roads. We're operating in districts 12, 1, 4, 10, and parts of 3. Again, it's 37 roads. And what we do out there is we mow, we edge, we blow, and we identify areas that need to be sprayed with chemicals. We identify bulk pickup for the city, and we do our best to keep the city beautiful. One of the issues that was brought up in the last meeting was Mlk Drive, and I believe Councilmember Boone stated
that way every day for work.
Stated that it was not looking so great. That was one area that that we were operating. I think it was 3.7 miles of Martin Luther King, and based on our observations of that road, it appeared as if there were several contractors, including possibly the Department of Public Works, that were operating on that road. And we did not want to be in a situation where the city was being overbilled. So we contacted the office that handles Ed Castro Landscape in the department, and we pulled off of Mlk that section that was 3 point. And we've recently gone back on it. We were given the opportunity to take over more routes other than the approximately 51 miles that we were doing. And we decided that prior to last week's meeting that it would be a good idea to get back out there and really establish a better level of service for the city. Do you have any questions about what we do?
Yeah, at this point, I think we've got a lot to go on in terms of posing questions, so let's open that up when we do have a list here. And Ms. Boone, you're up, followed by Mr. Lewis, followed by Mr. Hillis.
Yes, I frequently see Russell Landscaping in my area, from the Kentucky Fried Chicken to Delmar Lane. I frequently see Russell Landscaping there, and my issue is the dirt is not being refilled. It's not being refilled in those islands that we see. Also, I'd like to see attention brought to Fairburn Road, from Mays Manor all the way to the Harriet G. Darnell Center. That's in the 600 block, and also Boulder Park Drive. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, particularly you, Mr. Ed Castro, for taking time out of your day to make sure that you were here. You weren't on the agenda today, but you did still show up. I also noticed that you took particular note with the Braves baseball cap, so I'm hoping you're a fan of the Braves and that you're hoping that we win today.
If we get out of here, I'd like to go to the 1 o'clock game, sir.
But also, I would like to as well. I was listening to some of the stuff you say in the mattresses, and when you say District 12, I can tell you're in my district a lot, but Cleveland Avenue, Jonesboro Road, Pryor Road, and Metropolitan Parkway.
Cleveland Avenue is probably the worst we have.
And whenever you say you're in my district, guess what street I grew up on?
We have a very limited scope. We do not have any emergency funds. We've been asked to look at those. We have some very detailed mapping of all the different types of roads, where all that goes. We have time estimates for that, and we were asked to mobilize or to be ready for the expansion we picked up. Ms. Boone, I appreciate where that is. I drive these as well daily. So we saw a deficiency, as Jonathan mentioned. So we drive Cleveland Avenue. We don't have any. We don't service Cleveland. We don't service Cleveland Avenue at all.
Okay, and we just agreed it's the worst. So
It's the worst. I mean, you need dumpsters to pull your stuff out of there. It's so large. When you have a
been
broken
there so
window,
long too. It's been there.
so everybody's just going to keep dumping. So, hey, I'm going to put my trash on your trash. We're going to keep going. This is how this is going. I got a broken window. Now all the windows in the neighborhood are broken. We don't have any authority to do that.
Why aren't you on? If we all agree it's the worst, I know we hear a lot about people saying they got the worst roads in the city. We all know who got the worst, and we all agree that the street I mentioned the most here is the worst. How can we get you to go to? You just added new streets.
We did not add any new streets.
Just said. Well, I'm listening and writing notes as people are talking. He said he went from 7 to 14 to 31. Let me put the number. 37 roads.
We have 37 routes that we're currently servicing. It's a little more than 53 miles. The roads that you just mentioned, we've been lobbying to pick up. Every single one of the roads mentioned, we've been lobbying, and we are in the process of expanding our routes with the city.
It's embarrassing to me because I drive down Pryor Road every day. I get my hair cut on Cleveland Avenue twice a week. I'm on Metropolitan for the gym every day, and we so used to it, we think this is what it's supposed to look like. And to see Ed Castro asking himself for these roads because he know they're the worst in the city, I'm wondering how. I'm glad part of the reason I was against that contract just being renewed without us looking at it because I had never seen it, and I'm glad that you all are telling me that you even see that I got the worst parts in the city of Atlanta. I'm wondering how can I get you to how can I become a part of your contract now?
Commissioner Riggins and City Council.
I'm on City Council, so.
I have 175 photos in company cam. They're all geofenced where all this is. I've driven up and down Northside Drive. I know where all these things are, where you cannot cross the sidewalk. You're getting pushed over into the street, from this
I can't
debris.
walk down the street. I drive a
can't.
Segway.
No,
I can't ride my Segway down
It's
the
dangerous.
street. Yeah, so here's my next question. We have the wrong people here today. Because they're not doing. I know myself and Councilmember Boone were the two people who were requesting that you come down here today, and you're not doing the road that she said, and you're not doing my roads.
That's why we're here today. We understand that it's all for one and one for all, and we're okay with that. But I'm going to go out. I don't think you have any issues with our services on any of our streets anywhere in the city of Atlanta. I mean, you can check my references. You can talk to Mr. Jackman. I'm standing here to tell you that. I will show you the guys that do this. I will show you the crews that do that. Everything is geofenced. I will tell you where we are 24/7. We do sleep some, but I can tell you where we're sleeping. We are on your streets. We have all this tracking. We have maps for your systems. We've gone through this. We have an IT department. We're using your GIS information to build these routes out. And we have the capacity. We've added a truck. We have 2 trailers. Council, I did overlook that ECL does have the curbside pickup contract. Yard trimmings, I'm sorry, that's what you call it, the yard trimmings. So if you bag up your debris anywhere, we're cleaning those up. So
just not on those 3 streets.
We definitely don't have those streets.
Okay, I appreciate you. I started my statement off by saying thank you for coming down here because I know how, and you said you were a little nervous. Man, I appreciate you for standing on everything you do. Thank you for coming out here today. I hope that the folks that are servicing my roads, whether it's Public Works or whether it's whoever is servicing the roads that I keep mentioning, will come here. If it's Public Works, hopefully we can see Commissioner Wiggins or somebody from Public Works in here who can come talk about why they aren't on my roads. Because I know I've been talking about my roads since I came down here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Castro, for coming to speak. So there's, I guess, some troubling, facts that we've been told by you versus what we've been told by DPW. So, for an example, Councilmember Lewis states he has a major issue with Cleveland. Cleveland is an arterial that we've been told is assigned to Russell. So apparently it's not them not doing that job, it's Russell not doing their job, which we've seen in other districts as well. So there are 76 arterial, this is what DPW tells us when they come to these meetings. They tell us that Russell is assigned and trims all the arterials in the city every 2 weeks. There are 76 arterials in the city. What we're told by DPW is that of the 195 collector streets, all of the streets, we've not been told there are only 37. We've been told all of the collector streets in the city, 195 of them, are serviced once a month by Ed Castro Landscaping. So that is not actual fact.
That is not correct, no.
That's very troubling because that's what we've been told by the commissioner and by other people in DPW that, again, given they're more highly traveled, arterials are serviced twice a month by Russell, and collectors are serviced once a month by Ed Castro Landscaping. So, I mean, I guess we need some answers from DPW as to what's the issue here? Who is servicing these roads? Because when I was looking, I have, example collectors that I thought Ed Castro Landscaping was servicing, not thought, I was told, was, some of the troubling spots in my district were Prairie Boulevard, Bolton Road, Chattahoochee Avenue, Collier Road, Hightower Road, Northwest Drive. Those are all collectors. And now being told you're only servicing 37 roads, which, if you're stating your districts correctly, none of them are in District 9. So I need to hear, I appreciate what y'all are saying, and, you can only service what you're given and what you're paid to do, but that's not what we've been told by DPW.
Commissioner Riggins did encourage us to go over your recording from last week. He was very clear that there's a disconnect.
A major one.
And he was clear about that. We're trying to improve their in-house capacity through workforce development, retention, training. We feel that's the way to go. You'll have more equipment. I have really great deal of equipment envy. When I go down there and fill up your trucks, I know how to do all that. I've got card access to help. That's volunteer. But yes, sir, we can only do what we can do. We are in discussion. Mr. Wiggins was very clear that there is a need to do, we'll send these maps to you where we've mapped these out, and the streets that you're talking about are on our radar, but we do not have any funds. You're out of funds for any right-of-way work for us right now. Ed Castro Landscape continues to fund things without payment in all citywide departments. Your accounts receivable was close to $2 million, and we continued to service the work. Mr. Wan, you had a question about the airport earlier about, hey, was one contractor going to be able to facilitate this? And that reason was because the previous contractors were not getting paid. They said, well, Mr. B says, well, what about Castro's? They said, well, we owe him over $600,000 and he's still here. That's my commitment. We'll talk more about our ability to grow and partner with companies to keep doing this, but we have since been paid. Thank you.
On just the airport contract, or? Well, that's troubling as well. So I'd like to ask the deputy commissioner to come up with DPW, since I guess Commissioner Wiggins is not present.
Public Works is good,
Well,
but it's
depending on what
in
their
terms of
excuse is,
payment.
because we've
Public
been told
Works
that
pays
195 collector streets are serviced once a month by Ed Castro, but they're not. And again, not saying it's your fault. I mean, you can only do what you're told to do and what you're paid to do. So I need to hear what the problem is from DPW about why our collectors aren't getting serviced as we've been told for probably the past year.
Good morning, Chair, Council members. Appreciate y'all having me here. Anu Sosvoff serves as a Deputy Commissioner here at Department of Public Works. We did work with not only Russell, but also with Ed Castro, who's here present with you today, regarding the collector streets, adding the additional workload to their schedule. They've been tasked with that order to provide all the collector streets. And as you mentioned, Councilman Hillis, as far as arterials, will be handled by Russell. We connected with them regarding that request, and as far as fulfilling those needs that we have for collector roads, as far as the prior contract, The prior contract, as you mentioned, it has reached to a point where we exhausted the funds. We are in a position working with our procurement team, also as Watershed being the lead, to add additional funding for a competitively bid procurement process for their work scope. So we're finalizing that last phase right now as we speak. So
I mean, getting a little cloudy. I guess the question is, I mean, the last time this committee met, we were asked to approve $1.5 million for Russell, ended up reducing that to half, so they could come back and talk to us, and we could see, I know you all are implementing, quality improvement, but I mean, just, again, we've been told, we haven't been told it's going to start, or we're working on, getting collector service. What this committee has been told for many months, up to a year or more, is that Russell services all of our arterials, and Ed Castro services all of our collectors, and we found out now that's not true, and even as Councilmember Lewis says, he has a major arterial in his district that apparently isn't getting serviced by Russell, which I myself have had those problems. I know streets in District 3 have had those problems with Russell getting serviced by Russell. So I mean, what's the next step? I mean, number one is, we were told we still had this emergency contract with Ed Castro for the collectors. Now we're told there's no money there, but we just approved another $750 for the Russell contract. And as was mentioned, this has been a quote-unquote emergency for a year or longer. So, I mean, when are these going out to a competitive bid? And when can we start to see our collectors, all of our collectors and all of our arterials serviced, like we've been told they're assigned?
yes, sir. The Ed Castro contract currently right now is not under an emergency contract for us. It will be done through a competitively bid process. So we are finalizing that right now with DOP to ensure all signatures are met so we can receive our PO regarding that funding source. So ECL is no longer under the emergency contract situation. That's currently their state that they're under now.
I'll withdraw for now.
For collector.
Yeah, so kind of rehash what is happening right now? Like what process are we in to get our collectors serviced, and I guess all of our arterials serviced?
Yeah, arterials are serviced by Russell, and also all of our collectors are done by ECL. And then we handle all the local items that come up for the local streets as far as DPW.
And we were told you all have started 2 quality assurance inspectors?
Yes, sir, that's correct. They onboarded last Thursday with us regarding their new employment here with the city. So we do have 2 new QA/QC employees that are working with us, and we're going through their procedures and items that we have in place for them to go through so we can provide that extra QA/QC over the contractors that are out there.
So they've started their work?
Yes, sir.
Out in the field?
Right now, they are learning the process. We have vendor scorecards that we've set up to basically oversee the work that's being performed. We're working with them right now to make sure they have and know all the needs that we have for the department and making sure that our contractors are meeting those needs as well.
That's all I have for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hillis. I love when we start working together up here as a body, because none of us are feeling good about the service that we're getting. And to understand that I'm not even a part of what Ed Castro is doing. He said there are 3 people working on MLK. So my question is to Public Works. How can I want that. I want 3 people working on my roads as well. I want them to be trying to decide who's supposed to be working because we get that much access. So if Commissioner Wiggins was here, I asked him the same question. I ask you, how do I get that on Cleveland Avenue, Jonesboro Road, Metropolitan, and Pryor? Roads all of us have to use to get down here. They should just look better.
Councilman Lewis, we certainly agree with that. We will definitely strategize and basically analyze what you've provided to us and work with our contractors to ensure that work is basically the quality that you expect, along with our residents expect also as well. And now that we have our QA/QC members there in place, we can make sure that it's completed in that fashion. So that's something that we're moving forward to make sure that work is completed the way we all want it to be.
And I know we talked to Commissioner Wiggins before, making sure we stand with our workforce here in Atlanta. Is there still, are we still on target to not need to contract out so much work?
That's our goal, is to, utilize our in-house resources for sure. But there are times when, as Commissioner stated before, the extensive amount of roadways that we have to maintain, we certainly have to reach out to additional contractors to provide that service. Equipment challenges and also staffing challenges can be sometimes those issues that we face. So that's why we have those contractors in place.
Which is what I understand. I like I understand public-private partnerships, and I know we need them, right? But we got to have good faith partners. We got Mr. Ed Castro, who showed up because I'm assuming Commissioner Wiggins, who's doing his job, doing what he's supposed to do, reached out to Mr. Castro and said, hey, I need you to watch that utilities meeting so you can see what's going on. I assume he did the same thing for Russell Landscaping. And our issues, it sounds like all mine are with Russell Landscaping. So I wish that Russell Landscaping would, I don't know who I need to talk to about that. I hope that we can see them at the next utilities meeting because I appreciate y'all, but y'all ain't got no answers for me. Only people that can answer questions on me is Commissioner Wiggins and Russell Landscaping, because Cleveland Avenue don't look good. And every time I get my hair cut, I got to hold my head down in a barber shop. That's a real thing. I got to hold my head down in a barber shop because we're looking across the street, and it's horrible. So I need some help. I need some help, and it ain't my job to do it. I need y'all to do it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So just to follow up on a request, one, sounds like there's some confusion or disagreement, whatever we want to call it, against what DPW has stated previously, what we're being told today. So I would like to see both emergency contracts regarding the right-of-way maintenance with Russell and Ed Castro Landscaping. I want it sent to all of the council members. And then I would also like to send a communication to the audit department that both of these emergency contracts be audited. Thanks.
Yes, sir. We'll provide that.
Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Spector.
I'm sorry, did you say that you don't have one?
We're not under an emergency contract or any funding for that.
Well, it may not be currently, but it was. You were under an emergency contract, right?
$168,290 in 2021.
I'll look back at the legislation that we've handled.
So there is, I think, are you calling yard trimmings and emergency contracts? Is that right? Yeah. So the yard trimmings is pending. We did do 6 months of yard trimmings. So we built out our trailers. We have our trucks ready to go. We started November of 2021, and then we finished in the spring of 2022. We're mobilized, have trucks built out to go pick up these yard trimmings and do that on behalf of Public Works.
Yeah. Well, again, I understand the yard trimmings, that's a separate contract.
Okay,
But
yeah,
it's,
but that was the only.
it doesn't match with what we were being told with the collectors and arterials. So I'd just like to see more information on those specific contracts that we've been told about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you for coming today. I want to say that I apologize for any confusion around attendance that I may have played a role in, so I apologize for that. Mr. Chair, the information that Councilmember Hill has asked for, we can have by next meeting, correct? Well before. And would it be possible, I know that we wanted them both to appear today because I know that a lot is being said that Russell Landscaping is supposed to be responsible for, and I know that our commissioner is out. Would it be possible to ask for next meeting for you all to attend again, and we'll make sure that Russell Landscaping is here, and also I believe the commissioner will be back by then, so that we're all sorting this out together in the room at one time, and that by that time we'll also have the emergency contracts before us, and that way we'll have all the information to have a constructive conversation around who is responsible for what. Does that sound good? Okay.
We understand that your time's valuable, but we will meet with you in chamber, anywhere, anytime. This is all I do all day.
Okay, well, your presence here was helpful. It did produce another bunch of questions for us to ask somebody else, but that's good. We need to make sure you get paid for work you have done at the airport.
Everybody's catching up.
Yeah, well, that's a kind of a troubling fact of life around here sometimes. I just have one question. I just want to make sure in my own mind that there's no watershed funding that's going to work on non-watershed rights of way or properties. Because you can't mix those up.
So I'm not the contract specialist, but I work with them all the time. Our green infrastructure joint venture agreement, we have a partner. Because of the size of the contract, your contract authority is over $5 million, requires a joint venture and a competitive bid. So Randolph Company, we have that. So that is our green infrastructure contract. Other departments have piggybacked. If you look at the legislation of the $8.6 million for 3-year contract, there are other departments that are not in watershed. Parks Department has about $200,000. Department of Watershed has $1 million per year for the 3 years, and those are the only funds that we have to do the right-of-way work.
Okay, and again, my concern is just that I understand the concept of it. This vendor gets that, this vendor gets that. I just want to make sure that watershed money is going exclusively to watershed properties. and it's not-
100%.
Okay.
They are militant about it.
Good.
We split, seriously, we split contracts up. We got parks, we're cutting grass over here for parks. We're doing water quality and stormwater management over here on the same thing under 2 separate contracts.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's let them get back to work right after Mr. Hillis.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear. When do we want to have Ed Castro, the commissioner, and Russell, maybe finance, I don't know, here, for I won't call it a work session, but a mini work session? Is it the next meeting, where I believe they were originally told the November 15th meeting? When do we want to have all parties present to have this conversation?
I think the sooner the better.
Okay, well, next committee meeting, so when is that? Ms. Matrisa?
Good, and please have some nurses come in to rotate us every 8 hours.
I can do that.
October 25th.
Okay, October 25th at 10 a.m. sharp.
Can't wait.
All right.
All right, thank you.
October 25th.
All good with that? Okay, excellent. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, guys. You're released on your own recognizance. That takes us to our regular agenda, G4, 22-01754, an ordinance by utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the FY23 budget for water and wastewater renewal and extension fund in the amount of $30,082,500.67 to transfer funds from the watershed reserves for appropriations and ed funds to the listed sanitary sewer repair projects and for other purposes at the department's request. I will make a motion to hold. Second by Juan. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, fine. Item carries. Under resolutions, number 5 is 22R4434, resolution by City Utilities authorizing mayor's designee to exercise a second renewal option for the contract listed with LabWorks LLC on behalf of Watershed for a term of 1 year effective January 1 of 23 through December 31 of 23 in an amount not to exceed $41,988. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Ms. Rackley, how are you, and what are we doing here?
Doing wonderful. Daphne Rackley, Deputy Chief Information Officer. Good morning, everyone. This is the second renewal of 3 renewal options for LabWorks. It's a laboratory information management system that's used by the Department of Watershed Management's Office of Water Treatment and Reclamation. So LabWorks has been used for many years, back to 2006. So it is a staple, and we're constantly looking at ways to continue to modernize and improve this application.
All right, there's been a motion to approve and a second. If there's no questions, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, item carries unanimously. Item number 6 is 22R4435, resolution by utilities authorizing mayor's designee to execute the Second Amendment to a special procurement, the agreement of which is noted here, annual contract for the disposal of treatment waste with Georgia Waste Systems, Inc., doing business as Waste Management of Atlanta, on behalf of Watershed to add funding for FY23 in an amount not to exceed $4,400,000, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Stewart.
Good morning, Chairperson Shook, council members. This piece of legislation is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his attendee of a special procurement agreement. The City of Atlanta Department of Watershed Management is responsible for the disposal treatment waste generated from its operations of the drinking water system, wastewater system, and various other facilities at the permitted landfill. Ordinance 21-0167, the city executed special procurement agreement SPS-1210228, annual contract for disposal of treatment waste with Waste Management of Atlanta, pursuant of the Waste Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options, effective March 1st, 2021 through February 29th, 2024. Treatment waste includes biosolids, grit, wastewater, water screening, ash, and similar materials from unit cleanouts like biosolids, example sludge, cake, drinking water, treatment residuals, thermal dried, ash, etc. Wastewater screenings, municipal solid waste, contaminants, and sewer, water system influence screenings like leaves, plastic bottles, twigs, and construction debris. This request is critical as the city is required to meet the requirements of the NPDES permit issued by the Georgia Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Division. Under these permits, the city is required to maintain critical systems to meet discharge limits to protect the public health and the Chattahoochee water quality. Subject to any questions, this concludes my briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm reading the legislation correctly, we let this first contract out in 2021, so a year ago at $4 million roughly. And here we are a year later, 1 year into the agreement, and we're doubling that. What happened? So were we off on the estimates the first time around, and do we anticipate the same level of needing additional funds in 2023? Understand the importance of this work, but just want to understand our projection accuracy.
Correct. So what happened was we have some capital improvement projects that we wasn't anticipating taking on some of that cost, the bring down cost, because of the pandemic and other things. It hit us, it cost us a lot more money to do other projects. So we jumped in trying to actually do the removal of the solids, the biosolids, cleaning out digesters, some containment, sedimentation basin, because we already had the contract with Denali. We could get it for a cheaper price doing it our way. So that's where the shift of the offset of money came from.
Do we anticipate, by the end of this second year, we add these funds for the year 3 of the base term? Do we think we're going to be adding more funds there?
We're going to do our best not to have to come back up here and ask for more funding. We have put some other aggressive acts in place, in-house to help cut down on that cost of delivery to the landfill by the dryer system that we have online. We're definitely beefing that up. Thus far, the incinerators, both incinerators we have online, and we added a transfer station, which allows us to move some material from other sites to be able to incinerate or put in the dryer, which should drive the cost down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move approval.
Okay, so drying it obviously reduces the weight and
Correct.
the tipping fees. and y'all are looking at enhancing the drying process. Are there any, and be careful what you wish for, but are there any recycling opportunities with any of these parts of this waste stream?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Are there any recycling opportunities for any parts of this waste stream?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the plan, of our dry system right now. Again, for beneficial reuse, that's definitely where we want to head here sooner than later. But we're trying to cut that cost down.
And I say that, I suggest that with hesitation because, we have a kind of a checkered history when it comes with dealing with commodities, which is what this is. And I remember a lot of unhappiness around pelletizing and selling stuff and all that. Any other questions or comments? Motion to approve, second by Hillis.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, item passes.
Thank
So
you.
ordered. Thank you. Takes us to number 8.
Item 7, Mr. Chair.
Items 4-7. R4436, resolution by utilities authorizing mayor's designee to enter into the third amendment to the agreement of which is listed here, Green Infrastructure and Landscape Services with ECL RAC joint venture on behalf of Department of Watershed Management in amount not to exceed $2,640,409.13 to add funding for green infrastructure installation projects and routine landscaping activities at various watershed facilities, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Wells.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Shook and other council members. This particular legislation allows watershed to maintain its critical facilities, specifically as it relates to landscaping services and green infrastructure. We have a lot of sensitive critical infrastructure along waterways that require stream bank stabilization. This allows us to do that as well as maintain our outfalls at these major waterways that could become a compliance issue if not maintained. We've been using Ed Castro for quite some time. We're actually happy with the services they've been providing. We hadn't had any issues, and we ask for your approval. If there's any questions, I'll entertain them now. Thank you. Are you paying him on time? We are. Well, we are. There was a portion that was underfunded, specifically landscaping, and we're doing a better job of it now.
I'll make a motion to approve, second by Lewis. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, fine, the ayes have it, so ordered. That takes us into held and item 11.
Item number 8, Mr. Chair.
R4437 is a resolution by utilities authorizing the mayor and the Atlanta-Fulton County Water Resources Commission to enter into an agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission for River and Lake Information Management Services in an amount not to exceed $110,450 for the period of Jan 1, 2023 through December 31 of 2025. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Wells.
Yes, sir. I'll be brief. So ultimately, the city is a joint venture with Fulton County Water Service Commission as it relates to the ARC. This particular item allows us to fund our obligation, which is a negligible amount given it's for a period of 3 years. And basically, we utilize the ARC to give us daily information as it relates to characteristics of
the Chattahoochee, which is our source of drinking water. We withdraw, treat, provide it to our customers. So ultimately, this allows us to continue to do that within our permitted withdrawal limits.
All right, if there's no questions or comments, I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Hillis. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Guys have it. Now, are we at 11 now, finally?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I've been waiting. 22-0-17-14. Oh, and I'm going to make a motion to bring a substitute forward. There is no change in the caption, so let me go ahead and read that caption. 22-0-17-14 is an ordinance by Mr. Amos to amend the Atlanta City Code riparian buffer requirements to allow the technical panel to approve encroachments for certain multifamily residential development, to make drafting amendments, and for other purposes. And you have it here. There are quite a few proposed changes, and who's up there to walk us through them?
Chairman Shook, Robert Moses, Department of Law. The changes to the substitute appear in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the substitute. Chairman Shook, they're in response to your comments at the committee meeting.
In yellow.
Yes. They're in response to your comments regarding public participation and notification during the riparian encroachment process. As you pointed out at that meeting, what happens during the application process is that the applicant applies for the encroachment. The committee then may do a number of meetings requiring modifications to the application. Only when the final plan is prepared does it then go to public notification for public comment, so the public only see it at the end of that process. So what these amendments do is it opens up the process to public notification and consultation from the very beginning of the process. So from the time the application is made, the public will be entitled to make comments at the technical panel meetings, all the way up until the meeting where the application is determined by the panel.
Can community members who abut a property for which an encroachment's been asked attend the proceedings?
Yes, Councilmember Shook. So at the moment they can attend because it's an open meeting, but these
Comments are limited to written?
No, they can attend the meeting, but these amendments actually will allow them to speak at the meeting now. And they're actually also required to be notified by mail of the application. There's a certain distance from the property that they're required to notify.
I appreciate that. Mr. Lewis.
And my question is similar. Can the community stop a build? If this something like this is going on and they're getting close to an encroachment because there's new law, and Miss Ann Phillips and an MPUZ, because they see somebody, they just found out about Lake Charlotte. Lake Charlotte has some new places where people want to develop at. Can Miss Ann Phillips stop that even though someone else owns the land?
So what this amendment does is it allows the public to make comments in relation to the application, and the technical panel has to take into account those comments when they decide whether or not to grant the authorised encroachment. So a community member cannot stop the project because of their comments, but their comments must be taken into account.
So they can make, so when Ms. Ann Phillips calls me because a new development is happening, that's one of these new encroachment laws, and she says, hey, I want to put forth comments, I then have to go to that technical board as a council member. She can send them in herself. She can send them in herself, just like Jackie Brown down the road from Ms. Ann Phillips, who isn't as involved with the community as well, who just moved over there yesterday, who has a lot of money. She can make the same kind of agreements. But Ms. Ann Phillips is just, you just get to say something, right?
No, so the panel will take written comment as well. So the panel will accept written comment on applications as well as oral comment at the meetings. So people have the opportunity to do both if they so desire.
Okay, but it goes through that board. Then
It
the
goes
board
through the
gets to make a
technical
decision.
panel. Yes. Yes, Councilman.
Currently, we have a law that says you can't go past, we have standards to say you can't go past a certain level, right?
What the Riparian Buffer Ordinance does is it says that you can't build into a certain area of the buffer without getting an authorised encroachment. And this panel is the determining body as to whether or not that encroachment would be granted or not.
Who selects the people on that panel?
The Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management appoints the panel, and under the code, the panel members have to have very specific credentials. For example, certain panel members have to have soil and water conservation credentials or credentials in engineering and water services.
So, but currently, if a person wants to go a little closer, they can appeal to the watershed management, they can appeal to someone, then they can make an exception for that one-off.
Yeah, so the way the process works is it goes to the riparian buffer panel first. If somebody is dissatisfied with that determination, they make an appeal to the commissioner, and then from the commissioner, there's an appeal to the Superior Court.
I think I like that route better still, because I'm concerned about the residents, the little guy. I'm always concerned about the little guys and girls, and being ran over by developments, because we live in these areas where people own this stuff and they're able to get to boards a little different than Miss Ann Phillips is able to get to that board. Miss Ann Phillips may not be able to take that day off work to come down to that board meeting, or she may not know how to write to that board. So I'm very, very concerned about this paper and us changing, this is a real change to our city. Charlie, this is a change that I can't see myself standing for right now.
So, Councilman Lewis, I just want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. So at the moment, the public notification requirements only notify people within a certain radius of the development once the final plan has been prepared. What these changes do is it allows any member of the public, not just within that certain radius, to come to the meetings and speak to the applications at every stage of the process.
So that's what I'm concerned about. I'll give you an example, right? So you said that, let's say we have something going on in on Jonesboro Road in Miss Ann Phillips area, right? In District 12. We have 5 people that come to her meeting. Typically, those folks, they live in that area, they love this area, but the rest of the folks in the area, they work all day. They don't got time to come to these meetings. But we do have a lot of developers that also live in the city of Atlanta. They may come flood that meeting. And so those 5 folks that live right there, Miss Ann Phillips, who've been living there for 40 years, been protecting that community. She knows some of the things that's supposed to go on in that community. She's been building up that community so that developers can actually come see it and it looks like this. She just got swallowed up in that meeting. Her voice didn't mean that much, and all she can do is make a comment. So I'm just trying to make sure I stand for folks like Miss Ann Phillips and Miss Jackie Brown.
So, Councilmember Lewis, to address that, the board will prepare, if this legislation passes, the board has procedural rules, and they will prepare an amendment to their procedural rules to take into account things like the speaking time, etc., like this committee deals with public comment.
But it'll all go through that board now.
Yeah, and Councilmember Lewis, that's how it is at the moment. So all of those decisions go through that panel at first instance. And the members of the public, if they can't make the meeting, they are actually able to make written submissions, which the panel has to take into account under the code.
I just know the people in my community, they never send in a written submissions. They DM me, they call me after the stuff actually happens to them. And I just want to be there on the front end, protecting them on the front end. I just don't see, just the way Atlanta was built, this group project that we put together. I can see this group project being messed up a little bit by folks taking advantage of folks who might not know the process of writing a letter down and getting it to us. Thank you.
Let me jump in here briefly and hopefully make you feel a little more comfortable. What I see this paper is doing, and what I'm grateful for the department for taking the time out to, this improves the public engagement process. It in no way weakens it. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect public engagement process, especially in a matter like this, where the deciders are a highly specialized group of technical people. You can't this can't be a setting for one of our usual city council committees, APAB here and, shoemaker, candlestick maker. And I can tell you from knowing some of the people on that committee for over 20 years, they know what they're talking about. They are very much aware of their expertise and my lack thereof. And they have no problems saying no to a developer. Or us, if we decide, we don't like, that when Miss Ann Phillips calls you, they'll say no to you too. But I think it's a good paper. Mr. Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to clarify two things. One is the only change that this substitute does from what we saw previously is simply add the public input, a public hearing process, but everything substantively of the paper remains the same.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that effort, but then that means we roll back to the fundamental question to me is that you're asking us to relax a requirement, the distance from 50 feet down to 25 feet. The trade-off being that there is a 50% increase requirement, or at least 50% increase requirement in terms of the stormwater runoff measures and water quality protection measures, and the shifting from the commissioner to this technical panel, that is supposed to give us comfort in relaxing that requirement. Is that a fair summary, or is that flawed?
It's fair. I would like to say that we're attempting to be more consistent with the existing single family, being that this primarily will apply to those lots that are relatively small, so the likelihood of a massive development is slim to none. However, I think the concern regarding it being relaxed, I think it's more so any relaxed item will ultimately be mitigated by increased requirements. We're at no time are looking to allow any developer to impact our natural waterways. And in fact, the state of Georgia, we're more stringent than the state of Georgia. It allows 25, will allow 50. This encroachment is negligible in our standpoint. It really is just trying to be consistent with some other existing ordinances.
Gotcha. I mean, I think this is an instance where our being more restrictive than the state is probably a good thing, because we probably in the city of Atlanta are going to have much larger developments on average than you're going to see in the rest of the state unless you're in another urban area. So I'm kind of comfortable with that piece of it. If we do not take this action, though, projects still have the opportunity to move forward, but we just have to do a site-specific waiver through legislation for that property, right? I mean, I think we talked about this last time. I just want to, I mean, is that correct?
Well, the code as it written don't allow for that, which is why we're here. And
Well, no, hang on a second. Right. You're saying that the code does not even allow for a waiver, a legislative waiver?
no, not at the moment.
I thought that's what I heard last time we talked about it.
So, Councilmember White, yes, you could waive the code by
that's what I thought.
introducing an ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that. So there's still paths forward, but it becomes a little tougher. It becomes only site-specific, and it's not just this blanket resetting of the conditions. I'll withdraw the word relax. I know that makes a lot of people nervous, but okay. Well, that to me, for me, is again the fundamental question of this legislation. It's not the public input piece. It is, as a policy setting board, is that the posture we want to take? And right now, I don't know that we've spent enough time talking about the changing from 50 down to 25 feet, and if it's 50% or more the right number, the calculus on that makes up for the difference in the distance. So anyway, I'm going to wrestle with this a little bit more, and maybe it's a conversation we can have between now and Monday about that particular technical piece. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
I like the word relax, Councilmember. I think that you used the right word. I think sometimes we can't for lack of a better word, you got to break it down to people like they're 4-year-olds. We're trying to relax the word. May I ask we got 3 people up. Which department are you with?
I'm with Watershed, and I'm on the technical panel.
Okay, so I was just making sure because I'm always nervous about the developers being able to grow in these relaxed areas to me. And so my question was, I'm confused because we had 2 different answers. The last meeting I was told there was a waiver for one-offs. Today I was told there was a waiver for one-offs by you, and you told me there's not a waiver. I know, we confused too.
So, Councilmember Lewis, there actually is no waiver process in the code, but the council can always waive elements of the city code by introducing an ordinance to do so. But what Assistant Commissioner Wells was saying is in the riparian buffer ordinance, there is no built-in process to actually waive the provisions.
Well, there's an exception, but the council can make exceptions for people.
There's no exceptions in the ordinance, so the council can introduce an ordinance to waive the code if it so chooses, but that's not something that's in the riparian buffer ordinance. That's just a process that council can do.
Okay, so I like that. That means that they can, there's a way to get this done without us changing our charter, without us changing so much.
That's correct.
I like knowing that there's a way without us, this body making that kind of decision that could alter the way the entire city looks, particularly small lots, which are my District 12. When we talk about the lots of the city, right? We can break it down. I know District 12. I don't want to speak on other people's districts, but some of our districts might not have are particularly prime for this kind of development. I think my district is, which is why I'm standing I'm yelling on the mountaintop. I don't want this. Thank you.
Councilmember Shook, could I just also just correct something for the record that Councilmember Wan mentioned? This does not reduce the ability to encroach from 50 to 25 feet. What it does is it allows the panel to issue an authorised encroachment to the first 25 feet of the 75-foot buffer. So that's an important distinction.
Before I recognize, I'm sorry, did you want to speak? Before I recognize Mr. Amos, who's patiently waited through his 2nd consecutive CU meeting, I have to share, it's always bothered me when we either feel really good about or disparage ourselves about the buffer number. It's not one size fits all. It maybe on a case-by-case basis, it's 25 or 50 or 75 or 150. This one number it's just government at its most inflexible best. Mr. Amos.
First and foremost, thank you for hearing me. Hearing different terms and words, developers' paper, this is actually a people's paper. We actually got here for the people of English Avenue who is waiting for an affordable housing development to take place, who cannot take place because of, I believe, 25 feet next to one of the small contributaries to Proctor Creek. I approached the department about doing a one-off situation, but they took it as an opportunity to really look at the entire process. My colleague Howard Shook chimed in about the community input process, and they came back and said, well, we may be able to do something different to actually make this better for everyone that's going through the process, especially my district who has the small lots, who are able to and should be able to build. Trust me, I'm not a developer-friendly person. I shouldn't say that on the mic, but everyone know me. I am a single-family neighborhood person. But for me to support a paper such as I am supporting this one in which we are more stringent, and yes, sometimes we should be more stringent than the state, but the technical people have gotten together, and it's one in which the community voice should be heard, but it is still full of technical people, because the first conversation I had with these guys, I was lost, but I had to be educated. So I'm asking you to please pass this paper forward as it is, to give the opportunity for English Avenue, Vine City, other small neighborhoods in the community to build, but also give the opportunity for us to better a process in which I think the department has done, been able to offer more community input, but at the same time to look at our situation and say we can do a little bit better and allow things to be built.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, council member, for saying this. I think that would be good for just your district. I think district-wide, you should look at, I think this would have been a really good paper for the district, because I have the same small lots in my district, and this affects me wholeheartedly. It doesn't affect a lot of districts the same way it affects some. And I know you have a lot of lot of development coming up in your district with the Georgia Dome, with the Gulch, and with Vine City, all that stuff going on. We don't want that stuff in our area. And so when I hear you say the department led, or you went to them about a one-off that they could have handled, then the department led, like, let's switch it for the entire city. Part of the reason why we got elected and we come down here and we speak for the people is because we get to now enter into this people part in it, and elected official part in it. And just speaking my part, I don't want them to start splitting up my lots in my area, which is why I try to put forth papers for my district. Thank you.
And thank you. You're right. We took the oath to govern the city, but we was elected to serve a district. So I completely agree with you. But I don't think this paper goes as far as dividing lots or subdividing. I think this paper is very clear. There's a process that you have to go through if you want to encroach upon a water source. That process exists now. The only thing that this paper, and correct me if I'm wrong, the experts in the room, this paper actually reduces, if you want to use that word or not, it allows multifamily projects to be built as single family would, and so we already allow it to happen, just not with multifamily properties. And then it also improves the community input as well. Yeah.
It does not provide the non-single family with the same rights that a single family development has. Single-family development, they can apply for an encroachment all the way up to as close to the stream as they would like to get. This restricts it to that first 25 feet of the 75-foot buffer. So there's still twice the buffer that our buffer is twice. Well, it's not reduced any more than twice the state's buffer. We'll still have a minimum of a 50-foot buffer. And you know, as Councilman Amos says, you know, right now a single family can come in and go up to the edge of the creek, apply for it anyway. May not get it, but they can certainly apply for it. Currently, and every application is on a site-by-site basis. It is not blanket that you can go do this everywhere. You still have to apply, and it has to be justified. And there are criteria in the ordinance that they have to meet as to when the lot was created, what they're doing, et cetera, before it can move forward. So there are a lot of stringent requirements that they will have to meet. This just allows a little flexibility for those that aren't single family.
I'll respond then. Similar, on the opposite end of Councilmember Alex Warren, I know he was focused most on that number. I'm focused more on that board. I know a lot of times we have things. I've just seen so many boards that we have in the city of Atlanta. I've seen the liquor license review board go against council members, go against the community before. Because I know once boards get together, I also see this. We're doing redistricting for the city of Atlanta, not just our zoning. I mean, our NPUs, and I'm seeing some of the fights that are coming about because the board is able to make decisions without the council. And so I'm just very, very nervous on us changing our laws. And I'm concerned about people like Ms. Ann Phillips, whose voice we're going to have to hear. Thank you again.
And very quickly, the issue with that is most of our boards offer recommendations. This board is actually designed and is part of the legal process. So as we talk about the LRB or ZRB or NPUs, those are recommendations to the governing body and or to the mayor, which has the authority to make the final recommendation. This body here is actually put in place to make a recommendation. And right now the law exists to where if the decision, not the recommendation, the decision is not favorable upon the person who got the decision, can actually appeal to the commissioner. I actually think this paper actually put that section out and then actually have to appeal to a higher authority, or is it okay.
So just speaking to that, and this goes to one of Councilmember Wan's comments about the drafting amendments changing the references from commissioner. That's just a cleanup amendment. So when the appeal provisions were put into the code in 2006, the drafter failed to change the references. So that's just a cleanup amendment.
All right, before we go to Mr. Hillis for the final word, because we don't have a motion on the table, I will move approval on substitute. Second by,
We have to bring the substitute forward, Mr.
okay,
Chair?
thank you. A motion to bring the substitute forward. Second by Bakhtiari. All right, procedural vote to bring forward the substitute. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the substitute is now before us. Let's go to Mr. Hillis and then Ms. Bakhtiari.
Chairman Shook, thank you all for your comments, including Councilmember Amos. So I'm supportive of this legislation just because of what I've seen in my district and Councilmember Amos's district, particularly with affordable housing. And if, you know, the city is going to get more serious about truly meeting the city's, the mayor's goals about affordable housing, we have to make it a little bit easier. Still, as Mr. Amos said, we're still, Mr. Barry Amos said, we are still well beyond the state's minimum requirements. But, you know, I'm not going to get into one-off examples, but it troubles me when I see, multi-million-dollar properties get stream buffer easements in my district, but then I hear about trouble from smaller affordable housing developers that they're having problems when they want to build affordable housing, for example. So I'm supportive of this legislation. Thank you, Councilmember Amos, for bringing it forth.
No, I thank you, Councilmember Amos. I see you're wearing my favorite blazer today, so thanks for dressing for the occasion. My question is there a way for us to make sure, because my concern is not, I mean, I think it's great for affordable housing developments, that's wonderful. Is there a way for us to do any restrictions for for-profit developments that are market rate? Because my concern is the benefit that I could prove to them when we need to actually have continued restrictions, if that makes sense.
Well, let me jump in with a warning. One of the best ways to reduce affordable housing is to stymie new development at market rate. So that's a big be careful what you wish for.
Right. Fair point. I'll think on this more. And most importantly, I need to know, are you in any way, shape, or form related to John Oliver? Stop it. Oh, my God.
No, ma'am.
I had to ask. It's been weighing on my mind.
All right, with that being our final question, I'll make a motion to approve on substitute, second by Hillis. Let's vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Ayes have it, 4-1. We have no more business, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments? Anything for the good of the order? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.